Great. So we are recording. It's only going to be shared with students who registered, so it won't be publicly accessible. Questions will be included in the recording unless you ask us to take them out after. All right. Well, hi, everyone. My name is Ellie Vogt. I go by she, her, hers pronouns. I'm one of the Global Seminars coordinators, and I am the specific Global Seminar coordinator for this program in Buenos Aires, Argentina. I did a few study abroad experiences myself in undergrad, and it led me to move abroad, work abroad, and then get my master's in international education. So I'm really passionate about this experience, and I'm really excited that you guys are here tonight to learn more about this specific global seminar and possibly studying abroad, or maybe even going abroad for the first time. So to learn more about global seminars, this is the entire team. Tonya is interim director, and Lisa and Caitlin and Alicia are other global seminars coordinators who might coordinate some other programs. We each have about 8 or 9 different programs. All right, so what are global seminars and what makes global seminars unique compared to other study abroad programs? So global seminars are UC San Diego's very own study abroad program. It's all created within in-house, and what makes it special is their UCSD classes. So they wouldn't be transfer credits. You're taking 2 UCSD classes during summer session, either 1 or 2. This program is summer session 1. So we're getting a total of 8 quarter units. And then each program is 5 weeks long, which correlates with the summer session programming. Besides, we have one global seminar that's 8-week, and that's an internship program. That's different, but everything else is 5 weeks. And to be eligible for global seminars, you need to have a 2.0 GPA plus, and then be in good judicial standing. And I'll talk more about that later. There's no language requirement for global seminars, except we do have one program in Barcelona, Spain. Last year is the first year it ran, and this is the second year I will run, and it does have a Spanish requirement, and it is fully in Spanish. And that's exciting, and we're hoping to expand our programs in other languages. And so the application period is from November 1st to March 1st. So the applications will open soon, November 1st, and you can apply as early as then. And then the applications close on March 1st. So after then, you cannot apply anymore. And the programs are first come, first serve. So as long as you're eligible, if you apply and are eligible, then you should be pretty confident you have a spot. But after it fills 28 spots, because the programs hold 15 to 28 students. After the 15 mark, or after the 28 mark, then there would be a wait list. So if you're really interested in a program and it starts to fill up, just check in with us with how many spots are left, just to make sure you can get your program of choice. And global seminars were created in 2008 with the goal of increasing accessibility for study abroad. They're small group experiences with supportive faculty members. So it's really great experience to get to know the faculty on campus. It's pretty rare to have more of a seminar style class. It's almost like a graduate experience because our graduate level experience, because the classes are at max 28 students, which I'm sure a lot of you are used to classes that could be 100 plus. So it's a great way to know faculty members, and some students later on receive letters of recommendations from those faculty members, just because you get to know each other on, I guess, more on an engaging level. And there's embedded academic excursions. So throughout the programs, there's a lot of hands-on learning. All the excursions will be tied to the course content, which is really great and makes this a high impact learning experience. There's no previous travel experience required. A lot of students, this is their first time even leaving California, especially the United States, and this is a great program to do so. There's a lot of support from our office. Also, there's a whole on-site team that will be with you in Buenos Aires, and then obviously the faculty member as well. So you have 3 teams supporting you throughout this journey, and a lot of maybe the stress of planning a lot of travel is already included with housing and excursions and all of that. So really just need to show up and be ready to learn. And then financial aid and scholarships are available. So I'll go over this later, but if you receive financial aid, your financial aid can apply for your global seminars as well as scholarships that we offer. And then diversity and identity resources, we have a variety of resources on our website. We want all students to feel safe and welcome wherever they want to study abroad. So if you see one of our partner UCAP, they offer these different sessions, and the website is linked below for different areas of support. And then we also have student stories on their experience related to their identity and experience studying abroad. So if you have any questions, let me know. And then I will stop my presentation here, and then I'll let Professor Kinnis speak more about the program, and then I'll finish up with the application process and financial aid.
Oh, thanks, Elle. So yeah, thanks for coming. I really look forward to doing this program through Global Seminar. We've been working on it in Latin American Studies for about 3 years now. So we're really excited to finally be running it. It'd be a real pleasure to spend time with students in what is my favorite city in the world, Buenos Aires. I've spent about the past 15 years going between here and there. Here being Southern California broadly. I'm from LA area, East LA area. And I've lived in San Diego now for about 11 years. And so much of my life has been over the past 15 years moving between here and there. I feel quite deeply rooted in both places. And so, Buenos Aires is a city that's, it's chaotic, it's cryptic, it's unpredictable. And I'm really looking forward to being able to kind of help students navigate such a terrain. My first time that I went there, I was very confused. A lot of stuff, happens in ways that we're not very used to. For example, you go to a restaurant at 10 p.m. and they're just opening. And I really struggled to be able to kind of get in rhythm with the social life there in many ways. And after I kind of cracked the code my second time going there, developed a bunch of friendships, a whole new city sort of opened up to me. And that's the city that I want to share with you all. I just returned from there about a month ago. I spent a month down there working on a current project that I am doing that is on the alcohol industry under Perón. I'm a historian. I'm a historian by training. My first book is about the labor movement in Uruguay, just across the river there from Argentina. I specifically look at anarchists involved in the Uruguayan labor movement in the 60s and 70s. And now I'm sort of shifting my focus to Argentina, where I'm going to be doing an investigation on the alcohol industry. This is a project that sort of combines multiple of my interests. I've been working in bars and restaurants since I was a teenager. I still will go in and out of working in bars. I'm currently developing a recipe book on Iranian cocktails. And this is an effort to approach the topic historically. I'm going to look at the political economy around the alcoholic beverage industry in Argentina during the first Perón administration in the 1940s and 1950s. I'll also look at the Union of Bartenders and the domestic production of spirits. These are topics that we will be exploring along with others. One of the courses is it's really a culinary ethnography course. So there's 2 courses that you would be taking. The first is on social movements, specifically the dialogue between social movements here in the United States and those in Latin America. And the second course is going to be a culinary ethnography course, so basically food ethnography. And I'll explain both of those courses in a little bit, but I want to also emphasize that I really, for this program, as I mentioned to you, my first experience in the city, my first experiences were quite daunting. Nothing bad happened, obviously, but I really, wasn't able to figure it out. And I actually sort of liked that. It made me sort of inspired to search more. The discomfort was a good thing. It was sort of part of a process of achieving a sense of independence and autonomy and a sense of self. When we go down there together, there's going to be a lot of things we're going to be doing together. We're going to take excursions together. I'm going to guide you as much as possible, but I also really want to encourage you to have a lot of independence and autonomy and to go explore on your own, build relationships, go seek things out, and to really just kind of use me as a reference to help guide you to kind of unlocking the types of things that you want to see there. I know that a lot of abroad programs can kind of be, you'll have a very busy schedule of one thing after another. And we're going to do plenty of things together, but I also want to generate enough space for you to be able to have some independent exploration, okay, and really try to encourage that. And I'll kind of explain about how something like that might be situated into the coursework as well. So the first course I mentioned is on social movements. Argentina is really especially Buenos Aires. You can hardly walk down the street and go outside of your house without encountering some sort of protest. The country right now is undergoing massive protests, specifically amongst the student movement. There's about 60 universities that are taken over by students and faculty currently, okay, in protest to privatization efforts of the public university there. Okay. These are very common scenes. A couple of years ago, it was, and I would say it still is, the sort of center of global feminism. I made a documentary in 2017 about this phenomenon, the green wave, they called it, or the green tide. And now we're sort of moving towards another mass movement phenomenon that is going on there right now. So this is something that we would likely be witnessing while we are there. And the idea is to, for the course material, to establish a dialogue between social movements that occur in Latin America, particularly the ways in which certain ideas, strategies, tactics really sort of start in Latin America, and then they move north and they arrive here. Ideas around racial justice, gender equality, decolonization, right? Ideas around really what it means to be free and strategies and tactics for achieving this. Okay? So our social movements here in the United States, at least is the argument of this course, Lati 25, the first course that I'm presenting here, is that much of the social movements here in the United States are very much influenced and draw from the experiences of from Latin America, and they're in direct dialogue. So this is going to be what the course is really trying to tease out and explore. So that influence from south to north. We'll also, while we're there, we'll meet with social movement leaders, folks who do organizing inside the villas, for example. These are informal housing settlements that are just outside of, or well, I shouldn't say they're just outside. Many of them are really central to Buenos Aires. 80% of the city is actually informal settlement. These are makeshift housing complexes, favelas, vilas, right? Favelas is what we call them in Brazil, where people have sort of developed a type of alternative spatial arrangement. And I say alternative, but that's a very loaded word because to what extent is an alternative when it's actually the majority of what the urban topography looks like. We'll meet with folks who are part of indigenous revival movements and folks who organize with the feminist movement, among other things that we're going to be exploring in that course. The second course is the culinary ethnography course. Okay, so as I mentioned before, I have a sort of wear two hats, right? I work here in UC San Diego, but I also spend time often working in kitchens and in bars. And I've been doing so even since I've established myself here as a professor. And so this is a kind of near and dear course to me. It's influenced by a lot of conversations that I've had with coworkers of mine in restaurants and bars where I worked throughout San Diego and LA. When much of what we're doing while we're working is we are also sort of, we're developing a shared language with one another, shared culture, and a shared meaning around the food, right? And that's a process that we're going to explore in the culinary ethnography course, the 166 course, and which you are going to explore directly through ethnographic methods. Okay, so that course is going to really sort of present you with some history and some studies of various food staples throughout Latin America. So we're going to go over like history of bananas. We're going to go over the production of soy. We're going to go over history of sugar, for example, and how all of these things are related to the global economy around food and food production. We're going to look at social movements as well that struggle for food sovereignty throughout Latin America, okay, such as the landless peasants movement. We're going to look at what are feminist arguments that have developed, and indigenous feminist arguments, eco-feminist arguments around food sovereignty in Latin America. And then through all of this, we're going to think about the way in which
like 2 hours, 3 hours.
food.
The river is like 2 hours at max.
Oh, I think your microphone is on. Cool. We're going to look at the way in which food is linked to a sense of identity, a collective expression. And I'm going to encourage you to, well, you will for the course project, do an ethnographic research project where you're going to really sort of explore a particular plate, a local dish. You're going to explore the process of its production. Okay, where do the resources come from that are used to make this dish? What is the history of this dish? What is the history of those resources and where they come from? Who is making it? And what is the meaning around that dish now? Who consumes it? How do they consume it? Etc. Okay. And so that's the culinary ethnography course. I mentioned also, you know, that I want to foster a sense of independence. So we're going to explore some of a few restaurants and cafes that I find to be particularly interesting for historical reasons. But also I'll provide you with a long list of different restaurants, cafes, bodegones, which are these kind of like large mess halls, pizzerias, pasta factories, that I'll encourage you to go out and seek and check out on your own. But for the sake of the course, your ethnography, you know, I would encourage you to, you know, do a type of ethnographic project where you might go to someone's home, right, on a Sunday where they're cooking milanesas or parrilla, or folks who are making homemade pastas. What does it mean to make locro, which is a type of northern Argentine, very much like an indigenous dish, similar to almost like a fusion of pozole and menudo that we would have in Mexican culture, right? These are folks that have migrated from northern part of Argentina and who still maintain a very strong indigenous identity in Buenos Aires, where they have much more of a European influence to their cuisine, a lot more pastas, pizzas, things like this. Okay. So that's the type of project that you're going to be doing for the culinary ethnography course. And just to wrap things up, we're going to go on a few excursions. We'll go see the Anglo slaughtering house. This is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's an industrial heritage site. I want to say it was the first one of its kind, where UNESCO declared it a site of global historical patrimony. It's on the Uruguayan banks of the river, so just on the other side of the river, in the city of Fray Bentos. This was once a factory in the late 1800s that employed upwards of 14,000 workers from somewhere around 30-something different countries. Okay, it's now in ruins. And in exploring it, we'll be able to get a sense of what is the cycle and the process of extractivism, right? So this site was really part of a boom in the regional meat industry, in the industrialization of meats and meat products globally, and then it eventually crashed. And now it's abandoned. It's a massive, almost entire city. Okay. And so we can understand the logic of extraction through this particular case. And this is a type of process that is ongoing there, extraction, including in the food industry with soy. So Argentina is the world's largest soy producer. Okay, so much of the interior land surrounding Buenos Aires, which was once sort of a heart of cattle production, is now used for soy production, as well as the extraction of lithium that's going on in the northern part of the country right now. Okay, so these are current extractivist projects that are ongoing there. But if we look at the historical trajectory of the Anglo refrigeration site, right, we can get a better understanding of, what is the boom and bust cycle of the extractionist project. We'll go to IMPA, which is a worker-run factory, some metallurgical factory, metallurgical, metalworks. It's in the heart of Buenos Aires. It was taken over by workers in the midst of the 2003 financial crash and is now sort of run as a factory with a social space. There's a theater in there. You can take classes for dancing tango, etc. I mentioned we'll go to a few restaurants together, and we'll also go to a few sites from the that are of historical memory sites from the country's dirty war that really began somewhere around the late 50s into the mid to late 80s. This is when the Argentine state was on a campaign of really a state terror campaign against its leftist population internally. And we'll look at some of the sites where folks were detained and hear from some of the folks who survived this very bleak era in the country's history that saw the disappearance of upwards of 30,000 people. Those are a few of the sites. Ideally, we're going to do some sort of workshops as well. One of the things I do is I'm a painter. I paint in the style that actually is from there called fileteado porteño. The sign here that I painted behind me in that type of style. It comes from Buenos Aires. It was brought over by Italian migrants in the late 18th century who were replicating the motifs of Art Nouveau and Baroque on sheet metal housing and carriages and storefronts. and doing this with paint. So replicating the sort of flowers and the ornamentation. And it's considered today to be UNESCO immaterial patrimony, immaterial global patrimony. And so I have folks there who are friends of mine who have taught me how to paint and who will be coming in to sort of teach us some of the history of this art form and to teach you how to paint in this style yourself. So that and some other things, probably plenty of things that I'm forgetting right now. I think that's what I want to share with you at the moment, and hopefully that gives you enough to chew on, get you interested in the program.
Thank you. Is there any questions regarding the courses or excursions?
Sorry, wait, I don't know if you guys can hear me, but I have a question about like the level of Spanish we should know for the trip. Should it be basic or like intermediate?
For the program, it's fully in English, so there's no language requirements. I'm sure I think it's always important when you travel to a country that the main language is not English, is probably research basic Spanish so you can communicate with locals. It's always a respectful thing to do. I don't know, Professor, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, I would say the exact same thing.
And
It's meant to be
Duolingo.
accessible to anyone who is interested. And regarding, the ethnographic project, where we're going to be sort of, I'm encouraging you to engage with local folks to explore a local dish. We'll figure out a way if for folks who don't have Spanish proficiency to be able to link up where they can complete the project. Yeah.
Any other questions? And then I'm going to go into more of the application process and finances. But any more questions on the courses? We'll also continuing to update the website too as we finalize details about some of the visits and excursions. So in addition to what was spoken about, just keep an eye out on the website. We'll also email everyone with any additional updates as we finalize everything. But all right, and then feel free to put questions in the chat as we continue. All right. Okay. So maybe the not so fun topic, not as interesting, but also very important, is the fees and the funding. So how we like to think about the fees is in 3 different buckets. So first there's a summer session tuition. So since this is a summer session course, you'd be paying summer session tuition just as you would if you were taking this class on, or both the courses on campus or remotely. So you would have that payment, which is around $2,515. The program fee, we're still working through it and finalizing it, and we will update that as soon as possible. We always try to keep it as low as we can. You can expect this to be in the range between 4 to 6K. And again, we will send the updated website with the cost once that is finalized. The program fee, since the course is unique, you're taking it in Argentina versus San Diego, so that's going to include your housing, excursions, as mentioned, the classroom, insurance, speakers, all of that is included in the program fee. So that's the first 2 buckets, and those costs will be what is reflected to you in the tuition bill. The third bucket is personal expenses. So we estimate this to be around $3,400. So this would be the plane ticket. That is something that you would purchase on your own. Meals, there's a welcome meal and a farewell meal, but all the other meals will be up to you. You'll have a kitchenette so you can cook to save money. And then also passport and visa. So if a visa is required based on citizenship, that cost will be something that you'd be responsible for. And then passport. If you don't have a passport is required for this program. So I would definitely encourage to apply for a passport as soon as possible, just because it can take a few months. And then if you don't go on this program, it's always still helpful to have a passport in case you go abroad another time. So those three buckets added together is what you can expect for expenses. But again, the personal expenses are going to vary on the cost of the ticket you find, how you, if you go out to eat every night versus cooking and things like that, and if you need a passport or not. All right, and then I'll go over financial aid and scholarships later. But so the billing policies, this is really important to know. So when you apply, there's a $250 deposit and it's non-refundable. It's only going to be refunded to you if the program gets canceled for any reason. Programs could get canceled if they're, usually we need a minimum of 15 students to apply to run the program. So that or any other outside circumstances where we're not able to run the program, you would be refunded that. This fee will be applied to your overall program fee. So it's not just going to be a random cost, it will be applied to your overall program fee. The withdrawal deadline is March 1st. So after March 1st, you would be legally responsible for the entire program fee. So it's very important to make sure that this program is financially feasible for you, because and if you apply after March 1st, you'd be responsible for the buckets that I described before. So thousands of dollars. And again, we'll talk about how to support getting this program paid for. But you can withdraw before March 1st and only, I guess, lose the $250. So, and you would know before then if you got a scholarship. We always make sure those deadlines align. So financial aid, if you receive financial aid, it will be applied for this program. And I'll go into more detail about how to figure out how much aid you can expect, but you will receive financial aid 1 week before the program, and the remaining balance will be due for a few days before the program starts. So you will be getting your aid before the fee is due, because we know that many students rely on their financial aid to pay for tuition. So you would have that money in your account before the billing is due. There's also grants. So there's a supplemental summer grant. We definitely suggest students to apply for this early on, because after the funds run out, then they run out. So it's you have a better chance to get them if you apply sooner, and we'll know the exact amount as in a month or two. The financial aid advisor, Eduardo, will have more details about what the grant will be this year. There's also UCSD grants and then also residual loans. So subsidized, unsubsidized, and Parent Plus loans that can be utilized. Also the CalVet fee waiver, if that applies to you, can be used for global seminars. All right, so then in terms of scholarships, we have a variety of scholarships that we're really excited to offer for students. So the Chancellor Study Abroad Scholarship, we have 100 of these, and the Chancellor just started the scholarship last year, so they're $5,000 scholarships. So this is, we haven't opened the application yet. It's due early February or March. I would suggest applying to the first deadline once it's available, because if you apply to the first deadline of the scholarship, you will know before March 1st if you get the scholarship. So you'll know before the withdrawal deadline if you'll receive $5,000 of that money. So then you can make a educated decision if you can financially, if this program is financially feasible for you based on scholarships or aid. And then there's also the Kathleen Deno Scholarship, which is only for global seminars. She is a wonderful donor who really values the experience of study abroad. So there's 10 different students who will receive this award, and it's a $3,000 award. This is usually due in early February. The requirements are to be continuing students. She also looks for leadership experience and then a 3.0 GPA minimum. There's also the Oasis GS scholarship. So Oasis has their own scholarship. That's $2,500. Again, these are, none of these are open yet, but they will be soon, and we will announce when they are. These are just the usual deadlines to keep in mind. Requirements are 3.0 GPA. And you can stack these scholarships. If you get the Chancellor Scholarship, you could also get the Deno, and then that's $8,000 right there. So if you get one scholarship, doesn't mean you're not eligible for others. The Study Abroad Office Scholarship, you would just apply for this one scholarship, and then we would see which ones you're eligible for. So it's just a one application that you would need to apply for. And then lastly is the Gilman Scholarship. This is through the Department of State. So this is from the US government, and it's a $3,000 scholarship. UC San Diego is one of the top recipients. This is the gold standard of scholarship. So we have scholarship essay writing workshops specifically for the Gilman, and you can utilize these tools for any of these scholarship essays because that's probably one of the hardest, not hardest, but it's the gold standard of scholarship. So if you know how to write for a Gilman, you can use that and apply that for any of the other scholarship essays. To be eligible for the Gilman is a US citizen and a Pell Grant recipient. Right. And then financial aid. So Eduardo Mulligan, he is our financial aid advisor. He's wonderful and he can meet with you one-on-one to determine how much, or to let you know how much you can expect in terms of financial aid. He won't be able to do that until all of the program budget fees are announced within the next month or two. So you can still, I would definitely suggest attending one of these financial aid and scholarship global seminar information sessions that he's hosting. You could register on these links. If you go to the Study Abroad website, the calendar, you can find these. And then if you can't attend, you'll get the recording. And then you can meet with him after that to learn more about your situation, what you can expect in terms of aid. And then once the final program fee is announced, he can give a more specific number. And then this is also a link to a session that he did last year. To contact financial aid, you would just submit a SNO ticket, and it's through a student services and support portal. If you go on their website, you'll be able to locate it there. And then you can compare program budget fees on our website on the program prices that will be available in the next month once all the program prices are finalized. And then the writing workshops, we offer that in winter quarter for scholarships. You can also get essay help from Oasis in the Writing Hub. And then this is what it looks like if you submit a ticket to financial aid and scholarships. They just changed how to contact them. It used to be emailing them, but if you go down to submit a question where the arrow is, that's how you can contact them through the portal and they can get back to you on there. It will most likely be routed to Eduardo since he's specifically for study abroad, which is great because I know sometimes it's hard to get a hold of financial aid, and since he's dedicated to study abroad, students find that it's very supportive and they get responses a little bit sooner. All right, so for risk management, and that's just because it's just a really busy time of year for the office. So, but for risk management, always to consider airfare. I would always wait to purchase your tickets until you're fully approved for the program. The program's running, and you're accepted. And we have a workshop too for purchasing plane tickets. So I would wait until then. That's usually late spring. And definitely get a refundable ticket. Just with travel these days, it's just important to have that as reassurance if your flight gets canceled or gets delayed. And then the cancellation policy, just to be aware of that. Backup plans for courses. If you're planning on taking these courses to graduate on time, if you need them for requirements, you end up not going, just making sure that you meet with your academic advisor to make sure you'll still fulfill these requirements. And then COVID considerations. We still, even this past summer, had a lot of students who had COVID, although the policies and regulations are determined by the host country. So as of now, most countries don't have a quarantine policy, but it's just something to be aware of because this can change, as we know. All right, so how to apply. So first I would say we have a get started Canvas course. It probably takes 15 minutes. It goes over the different program types and again, financial aid, just some specific knowledge that you might want to be aware of. So I'd suggest completing this course. It's on our Study Abroad website. And then if you are 100% that you want to go in this program and are ready to apply, that's great. We love that. What you'll do is you'll create a Triton's Abroad profile. This is the system where you'll submit an application. What we'll need is an unofficial transcript. We need to see your GPA, that you meet the 2.0 GPA requirements, and then also the health screening form. So this program does require also a travel clinic form. So you'll need a physical and mental health clearance. And you can do this through UC SHIP, so on student health services on campus. And they also can do the travel clinic. So you just let them know that you're going to Argentina, and then they'll fill out the required forms. You can go to student health services if you have UC SHIP or if you don't. You just have to pay, the cost would be different. You can go to your private doctor if you prefer. However, they would need to fill out our form. So our health form is on our website, and that's really important. So most students go to student health just because they, it's on campus, and student health is used to completing these forms. But again, if you prefer to go through your doctor, they just need to fill out our form. And you would need to be cleared to go on the program. If you're not cleared, then unfortunately you wouldn't be able to participate. And if you're also not medically cleared, usually you would get your deposit back. Passport, again, you need a passport for this program, so we encourage you to apply as soon as possible. And then when you apply, you can just submit a placeholder showing the receipt so we know that you applied, and it's going to take a few months to get. Personal statement, so about 500 words. Just we would love to know, why you're interested in going to this program, how it aligns with any personal goals, professional goals, academic goals. This is not going to make or break if you get into the program, but we do want to see some, effort in there. It's a good way to reflect on why you're applying to this program. And I'll definitely send it back if it's like 2 sentences. So, and actually, this is a good statement that you can tailor and use towards your study abroad scholarship application. Then there's the waiver and policy forms that you'll need to read. Judicial affairs agreement. So basically you will click to acknowledge that we can receive any judicial sanctions or any past history with that from your college. If you have any pending or past sanctions, doesn't mean you can't go on the program. It just means we're going to speak to your dean about it to see if this would be a good fit for you at this time. And then if you don't have any sanctions, that's also great, and that's something that we need to know to go on this program. And then there's the $250 non-refundable deposit. All right, so that was a lot of the application information. More of the fun events coming up. We have the Study Abroad Expo. So this is on Friday, October 25th. We'd love to see you there. We're gonna have a bunch of different tables there going over different study abroad programs. We're gonna have a global seminars table. Some of the faculty will be there. So we'd love for you to come say hi. It's from 10 to 2 at Town Square. And then also something to note is the Globally Engaged Tritons CCR opportunity. This is a co-curricular opportunity, which is great for your resume, professional development, and some global events on campus that if you attend, you can apply towards the CCR. So there's language conversation tables, there's a global forum series, global coffee hour. This is a great way if you want to get involved in the global community on campus. And this is also great to facilitate those intercultural skills before you go on a study abroad program too, or when you come back and you want to continue that skill set. All right, so how to reach us. If you have any questions, you can submit a question through VAC. You can just put the program name and it'll be directed towards me. And then we also have virtual drop-in hours. So from Monday and Thursday at 1 to 3 p.m. and on Fridays at 10 to 11:30. I'm on Friday drop-ins, but I have other global seminar coordinators on Monday and Thursday. So you can attend any of them. We can answer questions. If none of those times work for you, just let us know via VAC and I'll send you a link to my Calendly and we can set up an appointment to chat. I'm also on campus Monday through Wednesday if you want to meet in person. Happy to do whatever you prefer. And then we do have a center. Right now we mostly just host events there, and some days it's open during different hours. We have student assistants working there, so you can pop by if it's open, grab a flyer, say hi. But most of our events will be outside there. And then just another reminder to register to vote by October 21st. Do that on campus. And then that's the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for staying on. I know it's a lot of information, but do you have any questions of what was discussed? I'll stop the recording so a little bit more personable.